This podcast is brought to you by Nut One Coalition's Farm Talk podcast. They have been serving the Hopi community since 2004 by working to reaffirm and preserve traditional Hopi farming. Go to nut1coalition.org to learn more. That's NATWANI coalition.org.
Terraform Development is a Navajo and Hopi-owned engineering, architectural, and project management firm located in northern Arizona. The company has full-time staff and comprises of Navajo and Hopi employees. Terraform services include civil engineering, residential design, drone mapping, and project management on projects for your need. Terraform is a Priority 1 Navajo certified business and Hopi business license certified. Contact Terraform Development at TERRA4ORM.com and follow them on Instagram at Terraform Development.
Can I do the intro?
Sure.
All right. I like to do the intro.
All right. Start.
You are now.
Start.
You are now. You are now listening to the Carl and J-Man. How do you do that? I don't have no clue. How do you do the intro? I mean, my intro is a lot better because I say, good morning, Hopi land, and happy Wednesday to you all.
Let me give you a tip. It is, you are now listening to the Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. I'm your host, the 5-star, 5-diamond chef, J-Man. And with me
is the coolest guy in this podcast room.
I was going to say, Mr. No Introduction, Carl. But good try on trying to do our introduction. You know, I think that you did okay. We'll give you a C- for that.
You know what? I am probably the best at doing this podcast here. And so I'm kind of a little aggravated at you right now for telling me like that.
You're always aggravated with me. I don't understand. Like, you know, you were here playing all by yourself, nobody else to play with. And then I came into the picture, started to play podcast with you. And then all of a sudden we're local res famous. And then you're always mad at me for some reason. I don't understand.
Because Solo says that you're not good to play with. That's why. Don't play with him.
He's always mean to you.
He's always mean to you.
Well, we are back.
Yeah, we are back
for episode 4.
Yeah,
episode 4. The season's moving by pretty quickly. We're already almost to the midway point, and so we thank you all for listening to us again this week. And then, you know, thank you all for listening to last week's episode and hearing, you know, our conversations about the topics that we were talking about what happens when we come home. Thank you for not turning on us for the epic rant that I went on. And, you know, I do apologize because then, you know, I think that it's difficult to convey your thoughts when you have certain types of thoughts that are heavy and warm inside your heart, and you kind of just want to throw it out there into the universe and just start blasting people for, you know, how the way that they act within our communities or other different types of aspects. And so, you know, I'll try to do better today.
Yeah, you know, you kind of did sound like buttholicious, you know, and I'm trying to stay away from the A word, so B word is probably the best.
No, and you know, I mean, I think that that's warranted because then, you know, with the podcast that, you know, for what it is that you all out there like to listen to, that, you know, oftentimes it's not fun to hear people bitch and cry and rant about things. You know, I think that people listen to us for other reasons.
Oh yeah,
that, you know, that we're comedic geniuses, and J-Man is has some really intriguing thoughts to change the world.
They listen.
And Carl is so geeky. His nerd stories make us all feel better about ourselves.
They listen to the sexy voice of Carl. So
But then, today's topic is going to be kind of another difficult one to convey without sounding too preachy, without sounding condescending in any degree, because today we're going to be talking about assimilation.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be talking about Hopis and our assimilation, what cultures were assimilated to. And, I think that as we go on and talk about the different ways that we're assimilated, and I don't want to have an episode that primarily focuses on the negative, to which, I try to do my best to swim around and try to find the positive things in some of the topics that we discuss. And, I think that way we can all feel better about our assimilatedness, if that's a word.
Our assimilatingness. Assimilation is like I think it's like a harsher word if you put it that way, where it's like making your culture not your own, but delving into another person's culture. I think that's what assimilation really means. So
you're pretty close there, Carl. You're pretty close to hitting the target to the bullseye, or hitting the arrow to the bullseye, arrow to the target. And, I think that's a good way to start the episode is to talk about assimilation, or what that term means. Because then, I think that assimilation is kind of been talked about mostly from a negative context, especially when it involves American Indians, indigenous communities, etc. Because basically, when you have this idea of the colonizer and the colonized. So, our colonizers that we've depicted pretty well on this podcast, at first were the Spanish settlers, the conquistadors, or the Castillos. As we've proclaimed in our Thanksgiving episode from last year. But then, I guess in the contemporary times, that the biggest colonizer is the American government.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or the white American culture, I think, is something that we kind of see as this big colonizer to us little brown people, to us little American Indian communities. And then so from that narration, that creates this whole huge negative connotation on the word assimilated.
History kind of tells us that, the U.S. government has always been there, has always been inside of our lives for, I guess, time immemorial. But to look at it in a way where our lives are not really our own because of the way that government has treated our ancestors in the past is part of like how you would say assimilated into white man's culture. And we've always been like that. Like what you said before, like the conquistadors, we learned how to make tacos first, and then afterwards we learned how to like mayonnaise as the white man do.
The funny thing is that in speaking about the conquistadors and the Spanish, I have absolutely no idea how to say most of the nasty words in Spanish.
Oh, really?
Which I guess disproves our saying that when you're learning a new language, that you learn the nasty words first.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But no, I think that, what you're saying is a good way to start the topic on the word assimilation.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why it's always been used as a negative connotation in how we talk about it, because then it's this idea of forced assimilation is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Of being forced to abandon our heritage languages, being forced to speak the English language or the Spanish language, being forced to forget our heritage religions and spirituality cultures, and to adopt those of the colonizers, which is whether that be Christianity or Catholicism or the various other religions that are out there, and then to develop, I guess, a new way of living. Because then when you go out to other parts of Indian country, that they have this history of their people being forced to transition from being hunters to farmers.
Oh, yeah.
But then Hopis, we've always been farmers. And so that was kind of a practice that we already had going within our lives. But then being forced to adopt other things, being forced to send our children to federal boarding schools as opposed to staying home in the villages and getting a a heritage Hopi education, so to speak, because then when you truly learn about Hopis and our daily lives in the Hisat time, that it was heavily built around our spirituality, heavily built around our religions, and also heavily built around service to one's village. Because then, that was a means of survival, was to ensuring that the population of a community was all working towards the development of the village, and depending upon what a person's clan that they belong to, what their responsibilities were towards the village. Well,
I do agree with that. I do agree with the whole idea of assimilation, but how us different cultures do integrate with each other is not part of assimilation. It's part of like that integration of different cultures. Just like with the Pueblo Indians, the Pueblos as well too practice basically what we practice here on the Hopi Reservation.
Similar to
what we practice here. It's not an assimilation part, but it's more of like the integration of two cultures of the same, the same religion, culture. How would you...
I think we can delve into that idea a little bit more as we move forward through our talking points of the episode. But I guess speaking specifically to forced assimilation, primarily to the European colonizers, are there any pros to assimilation? I feel like that you're going to give me a whole long list
of it. Well, first of all, thank you for giving me this podcast here. So, thank you for fried chicken. Thank you for Piccadilly's. The list goes on and on.
I'm so surprised that your first answer wasn't McDonald's.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's priority. So,
and then also too, a tidbit for the listeners that you and I, for the topic of assimilation, had planned to wear suits.
We did.
Into the studio and to wear our suits, but Carl decided to put on some pounds, decided to stretch out that waistband, and now he can't fit his suit anymore.
I was a medium, and I turned into an extra large.
Overnight.
How does that
happen?
I was like the McDonald's meal, supersize me.
But I mean, I guess, like a lot of the pros now, because then, you think about like things like healthcare systems right now, right?
Yeah.
Because then, now that the science and technology is there to prevent certain diseases or to cure certain diseases, to help people to get better from certain viruses, as to where back in the Hisat time that the technology and science, I guess, from the context of Western medicine, was practically non-existent. And so that a lot of folks fell ill and died from a lot of these things.
Well, it's because a lot of before the influence of Western society, we never had those types of sicknesses like that. So we never had the means to seek out alternative health, quote unquote, alternative health for to cure whatever this illness is. And for a very, very long time, that has never existed before. So when Western culture was influenced here in native land, that's when, we depended on Western medicine to get us well and to get us through. So I don't think that would be, I don't know if that would be assimilated or not.
So your premise then is to, your premise would be, we're combating colonized viruses and diseases with Western medicine, with medicine from the colonizer.
Perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, perfectly true.
But that is true, because then you think about things outside of just sickness, but like obesity, right?
Yeah.
That the old people, you hear them say all the time that Hopis back in the day were never big.
Oh, no.
That we were all skinny.
Yeah.
And then you think about things like diabetes, heart disease.
Yeah.
And then you even think about some of the vices that we have, alcoholism, drug addiction, that all of those were non-existent until the colonials came and then introduced it to us. So now in turn, those are some of the diseases that we suffer from the most.
Thinking back before, like all of the what is it, the alcohol? I wonder what, Hisat Hopis used to do on their free time.
How they used to get
How they used to get free time. I used to deal with the kids at home, and they're probably praying. It's like, oh God, I wish there was like a white man with some beer around here or something like that. I don't know. It's like, when does this assimilation start? That's what I think. So, you have your father sitting at home.
I can't breathe. But I guess really, that's kind of the platform for the discussion of this idea of forced assimilation. But really what I wanted to talk about in this episode was not so much about the forced assimilation, so to speak, but kind of other types of assimilation that Hopis have succumbed themselves to. And you see it, kind of pretty often throughout social media. Social media is this wonderful window that you can look through and you get to see people, all of their thoughts, the way that they think. And, sometimes I log off of social media feeling sick to my stomach that no, I'm just kidding. But, through social media, you do see how people interact with society. You do see how people share their perspectives on life, how they share their perspectives on Hopi, how they share how they carry themselves as a Hopi in 2021, because then, there's a lot of documentation on social media, whether that's through written posts or pictures that identify certain activities that individuals are doing, and that we've made that declaration before, that to a degree that social media is the new Hopi moon, that it tells you what time of the year it is, what types of practices that Hopi is involved with at certain times of the year. Because right now you see a lot of people and their harvesting pictures, a lot of harvesting going on out there in Hopi land. And then you also see a lot of pictures of people that are tupeplau.
Oh yeah.
Making baking sweet corn, making tupev. And then so it's through all of this interaction that you see how people think, how people perceive Hopi and their places within Hopi. And so the idea that I wanted to kind of bring up was this idea of Hopis assimilating Hopis.
Okay. How does that work?
How does that work? And that's kind of an interesting concept that I wanted to discuss, because, and I think really probably only Hopis for the most part would kind of understand this concept, but I guess to try to do my best to explain it to our non-Hopi listeners, of this idea of Hopis assimilating each other. And so basically, when you think about how you go about your life, how you perceive the world, whether that's personally or religiously or based upon how your family raises you to think and to, approach certain things, or even, how you speak, the type of language that you use, the type of terminologies that you use to identify certain things. And so like when you take it to I guess kind of like a United States context, that like what you're drinking right now, you have a bottle of Dr. Pepper sitting in front of you. That we all don't call that type of drink the same thing.
No.
Some of us call it soda, and some of us call it pop.
Okay.
And so, that's kind of, I guess, a regionally based difference in how we talk about certain things. And so in some places in a community, you're raised to call soda pop.
Okay.
And then you have other terms for other things. Some people call short pants trunks.
Yeah.
Some people call, I don't know, trying to think about some other terms, but that's kind of the example. And that's very true here on Hopi. And then I guess other examples too is that in communities that neighbor each other, that sometimes the dominant religion is Christianity. And then you go to the community over, then the dominant religion might be a different form of Christianity. You go to the community over then maybe they're LDS. And then you go to the other community next door, maybe they're Presbyterian. And so basically, communities differ from one another, not only just with language, but with religion, with how we perceive the world, how we label certain things. And Hopi is no different. And that we've explained it before, that you have a first mesa, you have a second mesa, and you have a third mesa.
So wouldn't it not be like assimilation, but would be like the influencing different cultures, I guess you could say?
I think that assimilation and influencing are pretty hand in hand, or that they, at least for the most part, are pretty much borderline to one another.
Yeah.
Because then, I guess in terms of Hopis, assimilating Hopis, and what my argument is with this is that First Mesa has developed a particular religious practice, and they go about it a certain way. And then we've also documented in how they speak differs from the other two mesas. And that's the same true for Second Mesa. And it's true also for Third Mesa.
Yeah.
And I think that when you go all the way down to, I don't want to say the grassroots. I hate that term, grassroots.
Grassroots?
You know why I hate that term, grassroots?
Why?
Look outside. Where's the grass at?
Well, it's green now, so
but
when it rained,
that's not grass, it's weeds. But then when you get down to the corn roots, I guess, of Hopi society, that Third Mesa very much has a different way of how they approach their religious practices, cultural practices, and then even terminologies about how they go and do things. And I guess really, if you're an individual that participates in the ceremonies, if you're an individual that understands the culture and the knowledge, that you know that Third Mesa differs from Second Mesa, that Second Mesa differs from First Mesa. And then you really hear it too when you start to talk to individuals, and you learn that there are different practices about how we perform and practice our ceremony, and how it differs based upon what your mesa you're from. But then I guess as talking to the elders and hearing a little bit more about the yesteryear, about the Hisat time, that they do convey that things are changing. That, as you said, influence, our villages are beginning to be influenced by each other. And that we're beginning to adopt Second Mesa practices in the Third Mesa villages. That we're beginning to incorporate some of the First Mesa practices into the Third Mesa villages, and then even into the tribe that you mentioned, the Pueblo people, that we're even beginning to intertwine their practices within our ceremonies in the Third Mesa villages. And that's true for the Second Mesa villages, and then it's also true, I believe it's true for the First Mesa villages.
You know, I disagree with what you're saying, and that because one thing that I don't like is the word Kiavakvi. You know, the Kiavakvi in a way. A lot of Third Mesa people like to call this place here Kiavakvi, because Kiavakvi means like person from a faraway place. But in actuality, we all stem from a single source, learning a single way of Hopi life. But then to separate us into groups of three, or like the three groups that you said before, it just doesn't make sense, because you might as well just call us like Hopi subculture 1 or Hopi subculture 2 or Hopi subculture 3, because all in all, I mean, we have that same focus and that same goal of doing our religion in that same context, but we do it in a little bit different way. All in all, it all stems from one source. And to say that, First Mesa is being influenced by Second Mesa and so on and so forth, it's not being influenced. It's just being influenced by the same religion or by the same culture of Hopi. So I have to disagree with that.
I think that's a pretty good argument. And, I commend you. That's probably one of your more articulated and well thought out arguments. And so, I give yourself an applause.
You know what? Yeah, I know. That's pretty much what I have to do, son.
But I mean, and I don't doubt that you're not the only one that thinks like that.
Oh yeah.
That there probably are other individuals that have that same idea that, and that's kind of one of the parts that I did want to talk about was that, does it matter? Does it matter that we are influencing each other?
Yeah.
That we're assimilating each other? Is there a reason as to why it's wrong? Or does it not matter?
For me, I don't think it would matter, because I think it would be not influencing each other. I think it would be like encouraging each other to keep up the practice, or maybe practice it in that that different way, because all in all, our goal is to have, life, reborn life. Basically, that's all what Hopi religion is all about, is to have the renewal of life. And that's basically it. Mm-hmm. And to have that, and it's like this. It's like that 6-lane highway in Phoenix, right? We have fast cars, you have the HOV lane, you have cars that are going all, fast and slow. But all in all, we end up at that same destination. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's nowhere where it's saying that, oh, you have to divulge from this road here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's that's how I kind of see it.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that's kind of difficult to convey without actually going further and to actually talk about what some of these differences are, because a lot of these differences that we do have within our ceremonies from mesa to mesa are what we consider sacred. And I don't think that I would be comfortable to talk about it in detail. And I don't think that you'd be comfortable in talking about it in detail either. So it is a very difficult thing to talk about. And, but I did feel that it was important to talk about. And so I apologize for those that might be a little bit confused at the moment with us Hopis and our wackiness and how we perceive the world.
So to kind of give context to the non-Hopi listeners, on Hopi, we have 3 mesas, first, second, and third mesas. I already said that. I know, but I'm elaborating.
Can you shortcut to what your point is?
And I'm elaborating it right now. I'm extending the menu, of course. This is like the hidden menu of McDonald's.
Oh my God.
And in those different 3 mesas, we have these villages here, 12 villages in all 3 mesas. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And in those villages, we practice the religion of Hopi. Mm-hmm. And in there, we practice it in a different way on each mesa there. So just to give background, and just
I have to apologize to you on that. You actually did a really good job. You're on fire today.
You know what?
You're on fire today.
I know exactly, because you're irritating me right now.
Normally, I take alarm to that, but as I said at the beginning of the episode, I'm always irritating you. And like I said, I don't know why. I brought you to the promised land, and you're always upset with me for some reason. So, but I guess to kind of counter your argument, because then I was thinking about this all day, so I don't want to waste my thoughts that I had all day to not say it on the podcast. But some of the way that we go about our religion and how it differs at times can be contradictory to one another.
Oh, yeah.
And off air, you and I have gotten to arguments about this before, that certain ways that Second Mesa does things versus a certain way that the Third Mesa villages do things, that there are contradictions.
Oh, yeah.
And so, that was going to be my argument in the ideas of, does it matter that we have these differences? And does it matter that we take these differences into our different villages to practice them? Because it was always my idea that however the Second Mesa villages do things, they know why they do it that way.
Yeah.
They know the reason why it'll produce good things for their people. And so, although the way that Second Mesa villages and how the way that they do things might be contradictory to the Third Mesa villages, and quick disclaimer, sorry, First Mesas, we don't mean to sound like we're cutting you guys out, but I think we're more familiar with Second and Third Mesa as podcast hosts. But then, and see, that was the thing. That's kind of always been my argument as a Third Mesa village, as to always maintain how to do things the Third Mesa way.
Yeah.
It's because we know how to do things the Third Mesa way, and we know why it's good to do it this way. So why not just stick to it and keep doing it that way?
Well, the whole idea is like what I said before. All of us have that same notion of practicing the religion in that same context. But like how what I was saying is it is like this is like the 6-lane highway.
Yeah.
We all do things. We all have that speeds that are different. And when you look at it, it's that we all follow to the same goal. We all follow to the same destination. Mm-hmm. And to encourage somebody from, I don't know, from Third Mesa saying that, Second Mesa, they do things weird or they do things differently. Mm-hmm. It's just saying that, our Hopi religion is a subculture of a Hopi religion. So we're like, so we have a subculture within subcultures.
Or you could just say that, the other Hopis aren't really Hopi. And if you really want to do things the Hopi way, then that's
it the Hopi way.
Then it's the Third Mesa way.
See, and that's where I kind of get like sort of irritated when we separate ourselves. We're one people. We call ourselves Hopi. We're one people, but we're so separate in our ways. And that's kind of irritating when you look at that.
You know what that's called?
What?
It's called an oxymoron.
It's called a moronic way of life.
Well, before we move on, I did want to share two examples that we can share of how the Mesas are different and how they approach things. It's like a Hopi wedding, for example.
Yeah.
Like the way that a Hopi wedding is conducted in the second Mesa villages is different a little bit from how a Hopi wedding is conducted in the third Mesa villages. And I was actually able to see mirror differences during my wedding. Because when I got married to the Res famous wife in the Hopi way, that there was actually a second wedding that was going on at the exact same time in the upper village. And so the lower village and upper village of Munqap, that there was one Hopi wedding going down on at Atkive, which was my wedding and the Res famous wife's wedding. And then another wedding at the upper village by a couple.
Okay.
And so the upper village wedding, well, I guess that wedding was the infamous Arizona Republic wedding, my water clan relatives from Hotvela. But when they had their wedding that was going on at the upper village, that they kind of followed the process more so of the second Mesa way, of the second Mesa style. And then our wedding was a little bit formatted more so to the third Mesa style. And so when on the day before that a Hopi wedding starts, that the Hopi bride is brought to the groom's house by their mother.
Yeah.
And so in the third Mesa way, my wife was brought to our home with her clan mother and her kids. And so if there's kids involved, the kids are there with them. And it was just them that came. And that's the third Mesa way. But at the upper village wedding, that when the bride was brought to the groom's house, that they had a whole entourage with them. That it was more than just the bride's mother, that there were also additional relatives, which is what I guess mirrors the second Mesa style in the Hopi wedding. And so those are kind of some examples of differences. And then the other example, and this actually might not really be a Mesa to Mesa difference, but really more of a younger generation versus an older generation of Hopi, and that's singing. Because then when you go from Mesas in the third villages, and then villages in the third Mesa, villages from the second Mesa and first Mesa, that the singing changes.
Yeah.
That we all don't sing the same anymore.
No.
In this day and age. And so, I was able to really get a glimpse of this during the whole COVID-19 pandemic, when people were locked down and people were getting bored and, trying to figure out ways to keep themselves entertained. So you had a lot of individuals, mostly young boys, that were recording themselves singing Hopi songs to bring joy to people out there in Facebook land, Instagram land, to kind of share. And so when I would listen to some of them sing, that the way that they sung was much different from how I was taught to sing. And so an example of that, when you go onto Facebook and you hear some of these singing, they'd be like,
yeah.
But as compared to how us lower Munqap sing, you'd be more of a,
yeah.
And so you see those differences. And so, like to you, and I guess, I'm really glad that you brought up the point that you did, because to some of us out there, it doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're saying, it's all from the one source. But some of us, it does matter, because I think it's this idea of, and maybe at the end, it's kind of a silly idea, but it's definitely an idea that exists out there. It's that this idea of, well, from whatever the source is of our culture and our religion, we're the ones that stuck true to the T of whatever that source is. And so we show that by how we do things today, and that we would prefer if Yukiavaks would not influence the way that we do things.
I kind of have to disagree with that because, like I said before, we do have that one central location of culture and how you sing and how you conduct in that manner, and when you listen to like the different dialects and the different songs of the different villages, I guess you could say, it's more of not less influencing each other. It's more or less like a guidance of how religion or how the Hopi religion should be practiced in a way. So when you look at the different ways, I think that, people that say that they're sticking to the true way of Hopi and how it's supposed to be done is just saying that, oh, I'm a Guivi guy and thinking that, oh, this is how it really should be done. So that's what I think. So.
I love it when I can touch your nerve, because then that's when I turn. We see a different side of Carl, and I really appreciate that and really appreciate what you've had to share. But moving on from Hopis, assimilating Hopis, there's also another form of assimilation that you do see that's heavily present within our peoples, and that's the influence, or I guess the assimilation to the concepts and ideas of Christianity.
Yeah.
And so out of the obvious, which is, our people actually converting to Christianity, because it is out there. It is out there that you do have Hopis that are also, I guess, in the Hopi Levi, you call them Jesus Hoyam, because, they put their faith in the Holy Father. And, I'm not too sure what the difference is between the rain that Jesus brings versus the rain that our Hopi gods bring.
Well, Jesus brings the party, and he's like John Cena.
Jesus's rain is green, I guess. No, but because we are influenced by the Christian religion, and we don't know it. Because then, I do see how some people approach their lives, and that the way that they practice certain things is very much reflective of a Christian mindset.
Okay.
In how they do things. And I guess some of the examples out there are death, for example, right?
Yeah.
Because in our heritage teachings as Hopi, that we're taught that when you bury somebody, that at some point, the essence of that person leaves that place.
Okay.
And they're no longer in the graveyard.
Okay.
And so that's another one of our Hopi taboos, is reflecting back to taboos, is that, visiting graveyards.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of putting somebody away or sending somebody home, that you're not supposed to visit graveyards.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing in there except death.
Yeah.
And so, and I guess, and that's really understanding the Hopi mentality behind death, understanding the differences in how we perceive death versus what we perceive life. And I guess really the example that I'm trying to talk about is that now you do have Hopis who visit grave sites of loved ones in the manner that Christians do.
Really?
They visit their, and like I said, I know this because I see it on social media.
Really?
And so nowadays you do have Hopis who visit grave sites, and then you'll see people post about it. They'll say that, oh, I visited so-and-so today, but that person is gone.
Uh-huh.
And so really from a Hopi context, I guess, what we're taught is that when you pray to dead people, that you're songyaonin, praying to zombies, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
Because we don't want the death to come back.
No.
Because when you pray to dead people, that it's this idea that you're praying for death to come. And you don't want death to come, because we want to stay alive. We want to stay healthy, that we want to always look to the bright side of life. We want to look to life, that life should encourage life. But this idea of visiting grave sites and talking to people that have passed, from a Hopi mentality, it's like that, like you're communicating to the dead.
Yeah.
Or that you're wishing for them to still be alive. So in essence, it's almost like you're wishing to be with them, but because they're dead, you're wishing death upon yourself so you could be with them. And so, that's kind of one example of the changes in our communities influenced by Christianity or influenced by Western practices. And then the other influence too that you see heavily that's influenced by Christianity outside from actually being converted to Christianity is the way that we pray. Because then as young Hopi people, we're taught to pray in a certain way.
Okay.
That, whether it's you're praying to the Creator, which in our minds is Dawa.
Yeah.
Or whether you're praying to your Wuya, which is something that you mentioned before, kind of the mascot of your clan, I guess, would be another thing. Or even when you're praying to like the Katsinam or, all the various deities, that you pray in a certain way, that you pray for blessings in a certain way. But then I've seen a lot of our people now praying on Facebook, which I think is an oxymoron in itself, is praying on Facebook, because I don't think that's the proper place that you make your prayers.
We're assimilated. We have to pray on there. So, you know what? I pray to my Wiyas, make sure the Cardinals win this game here. Here's a little bit of food.
But then you see the way that they pray, because then a reflection on how Christians pray, right?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, please bless us.
Oh, holy God.
Oh, holy God, etc. Yeah. But then you see that now on Facebook from Hopis.
Okay.
Dear Creator, please bless us, etc., etc. It's almost mirroring the Christian prayer, except that you cut, copy, and paste Jesus Christ to Creator. Yeah. Or to Tawa in how people see it. And so, that's kind of another way that we're assimilating to Christianity without actually converting to Christianity.
Before we go on, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. Nurturing Indigenous Intelligence is a grassroots organization based on the Hopi Reservation. They work to alleviate the hardships in the community through acts of giving, from distributing school supplies, volunteering at various places, and working to expand their services. Follow them on Instagram at Nurturing I Squared and on Facebook at NI Squared Team to find out more.
Coenvioma Law, PLLC, is 100% native-owned and operated, founded by Vern Coenvioma. Their practice areas include corporate law, business transactions, finance, economic development, gaming, casino development, online gaming, real estate, environmental permitting and approvals, telecommunications, government affairs, employment and labor relations, historic preservation and cultural resources, and energy. Coenvioma Law is committed to making positive and lasting change in our communities as they support nonprofit volunteering, community activism, and employing Indian preference in hiring and vendor relations.
And then the last example, as we're coming back from break, that I wanted to bring up in terms of how we're influenced by Christianity. And this is really, it's not really a Hopi thing, but I'm starting to see that it's becoming a Hopi thing. And really where you see this, and really where I've seen it, is at like the university level.
Yeah.
Or within like indigenous organizations on a national level, indigenous companies at a national level. It's this idea of a blessing before a big event happens. Because then out at ASU, when I was involved with different various student organizations, working to help build programs and events and etc., that there was this concept of a blessing.
Okay.
That they would choose an indigenous person and they would say, can you bless this event? And so they would bring somebody on and then they would say, kind of the things that you're supposed to say. Dear Creator, please look out for us and all our relatives, all our loved ones, and please let this event go flawlessly.
Yeah.
Casino night at Casino Arizona, or, casino night at Talking Stick, or, something to that nature. And, because out here on Hopi and the way that we do things, I guess in the 6-lane highway, I'll entertain your notion, Carl. In the 6-lane highway, that we do have concepts of blessings or asking for prayers to bless the events, but we do it kind of in a more, I guess, behind the scenes type of way. Like individuals that are participating in a ceremony that they might go out before the sun comes up and make a prayer. And, whether who they're praying to, that's basically what they're asking for, is the blessings. It's not in front of everybody type thing.
No.
But when you go out to these university events, these big events,
gatherings,
gatherings, that all of these blessings that they ask people to do, they're all done in front of the big crowds. And so it's to the point of almost the introduction to an event. And I've been asked to do blessings for events before, so I'll get suited up,
put on your bolo tie,
put on my bolo tie, fully embracing my assimilationness. I'll have a cross in one hand, a bundle of burning sage in the other.
Your Bible and sage.
Tied to my belt is my homomokpi hanging from the side to represent my Hopi side. No, but when anybody has ever asked me to do a blessing, that I would go out early in the morning and ask for that blessing in our traditional way, our heritage way. And then when it would come time for the show, then I'd go out there and do the quote unquote blessing. But I mean, I've always and see, that's kind of, I guess, the oxymorons are word of the day. Well, I guess not necessarily that, but the contradiction, I guess, is that they do these blessings in an attempt to, I guess, quote unquote, indigenize the event.
Yeah.
That we're going to ask for these prayers and these blessings in a heritage Native American way. But yet, the process of how they do it, in my opinion, in J-Man's opinion, is much more aligned with Christianity, much more aligned with the white man's concepts of blessing. And then I always used to laugh too, because then sometimes, because being an American Indian Studies major, that you had these heavy dialogues of forced assimilation, like we talked about at the very beginning of the episode, that included with that dialogue of forced assimilation was being forced to adopt the colonized religion, whether that's Catholicism or Christianity. And then so because we have this such negative connotation of assimilation, that a lot of our indigenous people out there now are very much anti-white. even though, we do have our foot in the assimilation pool to some extent, but that's a conversation for another time.
Remember,
but real quick, and I'll finish my rant. But the funny thing is that when we would have these blessings at ASU or at other places, that they would choose somebody that was, even though that they were native or indigenous, that they would come from a Catholic or Christian background. And then so you would get them up there, and then it was either always "Dear Jesus Christ," or at the end it was in the Holy Ghost, Amen, which was kind of funny to me.
Before you rudely interrupted me, I was going to say that. Oh God, what was I going to say? You rudely interrupted me.
It must have not been that important.
It was important because I'm trying to remember it now, and this music right now is soothing, and it's putting me to sleep. But anyway, I wanted to say that I remember I said that there are a lot of the ways that we do a lot of the Hopi stuff, or like Native American stuff in colleges or in bigger things. That
off the reservation.
Off the reservation. That should not be off the reservation. Just like, dressing up for your graduation. Putting the feather in your hair. I, in my opinion, that shouldn't be there, because it's not a native thing to do.
Well, I think it's my turn to disagree with you on that, Carl.
Go ahead.
Because then technically, isn't all of America Indian country? So whether you're doing it in Oraibi, Arizona, or whether you're doing something in Tempe, Arizona, that technically that is indigenous land.
No, you have a point there, but the education is not Hopi, or the education is not Native American. So if I were to go to a native school with all native teachings and in their native language, then I would probably wear something into that attire there. But if it's a Bahana school with Bahana teachings, with all sorts of things that influenced by the white man, and then that's the white man's thing. So I disagree with that. So
I'm going to have to disagree with you that again. I think that the whole concept of education technically is also an indigenous concept as well, that we all do have some form of education out there.
If it was taught in the Indian education type of way, like in their native language, then yeah, it would probably hold true.
I just wanted to disagree with you to piss you off, because I can tell you're already
I'm already
riled.
pissed off. The whole concept is because I don't think that we should be separating ourselves in that whole way there. I think we should just be all one people. Like,
you'd be like, unity.
And that's where I kind of do get pissed off in a way, is that we separate ourselves to the point that we call each other non-Hopis in a way. Even though we're Hopis, we call ourselves non-Hopis, doing non-Hopi things.
I'm just smiling from ear to ear, thinking all the times that Carl called me a non-Hopi because I'm from Munqap.
We call you guys
irritated.
We call you guys upper and upper and lower Munqap. They're all one pretty much. So,
and I tried to educate you on how that concept wasn't true, but yet just like a true Nukva that you are.
And the reason why I'm saying that is because it does kind of irritate me in a way. It's like, why do we want to separate ourselves as a unified Hopi structure when we're so different in our ways of teaching?
Because our differences are beautiful. Our differences are what make us unique.
But it's not supposed to be.
Our differences are tied in with our history. Our differences are tied in with how our people journey through the world and then throughout history. But I wouldn't expect a guy like you to think about those types of things. So, but I real quick before you completely blow up. In regards to, I guess, the changes in Christianity, like what and how we're influenced now by Christianity, how does that change things? How does that affect our community? Because I guess, one of the points that I did want to bring up was that I've made this point before, that between you and I, that we're both very fortunate, because then, when I was growing up and when I was getting this quote unquote Hopi education from my parents, from my so'o and gua'a, that I didn't realize that not everybody my age was learning the same thing.
Yeah.
I grew up thinking this entire time that all the knowledge that I had in my head was common knowledge, that everybody knows this. But yet when social media comes out and you see the differences in how our people go about things and how they do things, that's when it really blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, how come they're visiting the grave? I thought that they would know better than that. Or how come they're doing certain things that are contradictory to our belief sets? And then, really you kind of understand that it's because they didn't know. That's why. They didn't know that visiting a grave is bad.
Sacrilegious.
Or what bad things could come with it. Or they didn't know the differences in how you go about praying in our Hopi way. Versus how Christians go about praying.
That's actually the first time I've heard that before. I don't think I've ever seen anybody out in this area visit a graveyard. Is it just you Munqap over there?
I wanted to make the joke, but I didn't want to offend my wife's people. But I was going to say, if you go to the K-Town graveyard.
But anyway, before our time is almost up, I believe he has a little bit more to go on.
You didn't answer my question before I rudely interrupted you.
Okay, what was that?
Well, what are the effects of these changes? Well, I guess obviously it's that, I guess in a way it kind of diverts our people from the Hopi way of doing things to a non-form of Hopis in how they do things.
Yeah.
Because then, like people because you have got children.
Yeah.
I have kids.
Yeah.
I have nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
And educating them to doing things a traditional Hopi way, that they're going to be growing up with Hopi peers and they might be doing something differently. But there are some other stuff that I really did want to touch upon before we move. And I did have a story that probably is really only have to do with Munqapis, but it's this idea of being assimilated by other tribes.
Okay.
Because then like we were saying, and that's kind of this whole premise, is that we're not just assimilated by the dominant culture or influenced by the dominant culture, as you prefer to call it, that we do get ideas outside of Hopi from other tribes. We talked about pueblos, or from each other, mesa to mesa. But I remember this idea of being assimilated by other tribes because growing up in Munqap, we're completely surrounded by Navajos. And so when we're at the day school, that it was just us primarily Hopis at the day school. Back then, it was probably 95% Hopi students at the day school back then. Something that I clearly remember from my childhood. But then when you graduated from the day school, that you would either move to Tuba City Public or Tuba City Boarding, which was predominantly Navajo students. And so as Hopi kids, like, we're raised and taught that you only have one clan.
Yeah.
That, and that we've said what clans we are, that I'm Bikeswunwa and you're Iswunwa. And then so as Hopi children growing up having this idea that we have one clan, but then when you migrate over to the Navajo school, the Navajos have 4 clans that they recognize: their mother's clan, their father's clan, and I believe also their mother's clan and their father's mother's clan, I believe, are those 4 clans. And Navajo listeners, if I'm completely wrong on that, please let us know. And so when you would transfer over to the quote unquote Navajo schools, that they're very much people that like to introduce themselves. That's part of their belief, is that when you meet new people, and Hopis have the same concept.
Oh yeah.
Although our introduction isn't as long as theirs, that you introduce yourself to new people, and so it's always Shi'e J-Man, which is the very little that I learned.
Yeah.
And then you say where you're from, and then you say the 4 clans that you're affiliated with.
Yeah, yeah.
And because we heard that so much, that Hopis started to say, when you asked the Hopi, what's your clan, that they began to start introducing 2 clans. They would introduce their mother's clan and then their father's clan. And then, you got Hopis saying that, oh, I'm Corn Clan and I'm Snake Clan.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing, and I even fell into that practice for a little bit, and then hearing my peers fall into that practice as well. And it got to a point where I was in a group with my Hopi friends, and I said, hey, you know what? That's wrong. We don't have 2 clans. We only have 1 clan.
Yeah.
And that's our mother's clan. People learn about our father's clan when we say our Hopi names. Sita Yan Matiwa. Sita is something that's affiliated with the Snake Clan. And so people know that my father is Snake Clan.
Okay.
By me saying my name. And so for somebody like you, it'd be Nakva Yan Matiwa. And so I guess somehow ears are related to Iskim. So
no, I would say, hey, what's up, bro? What's up?
and so, that's kind of an example of being assimilated or influenced by another culture. And that's how we were assimilated and influenced by Navajo. And, there were a couple of other examples that I had, but as we're running out of time, that's the story that I wanted to share. So, assimilation is all around us, not just in our faces like we think. By the forced assimilation, this idea of colonialism. But
I wouldn't say assimilated is all around us. I would say an influence is all around us, because assimilation is actually not doing our culture anymore. It's not doing anything with our culture anymore. I would say it's influencing our culture. So I would kind of say it's an influence rather than assimilation.
So are we influencers or assimilationers?
We're actually influencers because we haven't assimilated to the Bahana culture. We haven't fully assimilated. We're half assimilated.
I would argue that we're probably 70% assimilated. But
this whole episode, you have ticked me off a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and this whole episode is it pissed me off to the point where I'm going to go and do my own thing.
You're going to do your own thing.
I'm going to do my own thing. And the reason why is because I had a lot to say during this episode, but you were contradicting me in all these different ways like that. So, I'm going to go ahead and do my own thing, and I'm going to leave you in the background.
You're going to go off to record your own podcast.
I'm going to go off.
Probably going to average 50 listeners an episode.
I'm going to bring...
And you know what? There's proof out there. that there is a project that you're tied to that averages 50 listeners. And so
those 50 listeners are my loyal listeners.
If you want to go off and be unsuccessful by yourself, by all means, pal, go ahead and do it.
I will.
Because when I get my own episode, when J-Man does his own episode and I'm averaging 1,000 listeners per episode, I might pretend that I used to know you.
1,000 because you were playing it over and over by yourself.
I'll pretend that I used to know you when you try to come to my celebration party.
You know, this is no more. I'm walking out the door.
Fine. A monkey can press record. I don't need you either, Carl. As Carl walked out the door, please don't forget to subscribe to our social medias at Carl and J-Man. We are found all across the boards on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe and smash the like button. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please give us that 5-star review. And so as Carl goes off to do his own thing, who needs him? A trained monkey can hit record and set up my microphones and all that. Next week, we'll see what Carl has to offer, and he does his own solo episode. And so I guess since he's already out the door, I have to do an impression of him and see how I can do it, asking people for money. And so coffee, I don't remember the site. That's Carl's job. Sponsors, hit us up on cjpodcast@85gmail.com. And so for Carl, who's no longer here, and Carl's former best friend, J-Man, so long, quack, quack.